A top-tier member of the notorious mob headed up by the missing Gillespie brothers has admitted his role in their £14 million drug supply racket. 53-year-old John Gray faces years in jail after he admitted being involved in a serious organised crime plot with James, 53, and Barry Gillespie, who's 49, before the duo disappeared in 2019. The former fugitive was nicked in March after stepping off a flight from the United Arab Emirates, where hoods linked to Scotland's raging gang wars were pulling the strings on the chaos. Gray, who's now locked up in Barlinnie, flew into Glasgow airport from the Gulf state where he'd been living while wanted by Scottish crime fighters. And just 2 months after his return, Gray stood in the dock and held up his hands to his involvement in a coke, heroin, cannabis and dirty cash racket. The court heard he was being watched by police as part of Operation Escalade, the long-running probe into the Gillespies and their so-called SUPERGANG. Judge Lord Cuby told Gray he faced a substantial period of imprisonment, adding, "You have pleaded guilty to being involved in serious organised crime for a period of 5 years. You operated at the top tier of the serious organised crime group. You were involved in the sale and supply of cocaine, which ranged between £4.5 million and £13.5 million, as well as cannabis worth £500,000. You were involved in the sale and supply of drugs, which corrode and disrupt society, and the court must take a view on such offending. You will recognise the only sentence to reflect the offending is a substantial period in prison." Gray admitted being involved in the sale and supply of controlled drugs between the 23rd of August 2015 and the 4th of June 2020. The offences took place at various locations in Glasgow, Wishaw, Motherwell and elsewhere. The court also heard that Gray regularly met with the Gillespie siblings and another now caged high-ranking member of the gang, James the Don White. Prosecutor Chris Miller told the court Gray's arrest was part of Police Scotland's Escalade probe into the gang whose principal members are the Gillespies and White. Referring to police surveillance on the 23rd of August 2015, he added, "The accused was seen in the company of principal members of the organised crime group at Princess Square in Glasgow. The purpose of the meeting was to ascertain the whereabouts of criminal cash in excess of £1 million. On the 25th of August, Gray was seen at a meeting in Motherwell Town Centre in the company of the principal members of the gang. They then travelled to a further meeting with members of the gang at a KFC in Wishaw. The gang got again together the following day at Gibson Street in Glasgow." Mr Miller said Gray was seen entering a motor vehicle with James White and driving off. In October 2015, Gray was then spotted having a chat with White at Molly's Cafe in Glasgow's Shawlands. Gray had been seen earlier that month meeting an associate who sold encrypted EncroChat mobile devices at a Toby Carvery car park in Crookston in Glasgow. These devices were later infiltrated by French and Dutch law enforcement, and the evidence gathered handed over to Police Scotland via the National Crime Agency's Operation Venetic. Mr Miller said Gray operated at the top-tier level of being concerned in the supply of unadulterated cocaine, cannabis and diamorphine around Glasgow, Paisley, Edinburgh and elsewhere. He was also involved in the storing, processing and moving of money associated with both the purchase and sale of the drugs, but also monies derived from that, and which formed the sources of funds for the organised crime group. The Advocate Depute told the court a string of conversations he had with various people who used anonymous handles, which included Tea in the Park. Gray also spoke with Big Poppa, who was Darren Collin, jailed for 8 years in 2020 after his EncroChat device was among those compromised. His capture led to the seizure of £1.3 million worth of heroin and cocaine, as well as £517,000 in cash. Mr Miller stated that the total amount of cocaine Gray was involved with ranged between £4.5 million and £13.5 million. Meanwhile, the cannabis was found to be £497,500. Gray was also involved in the collecting of £1 million as well as obtaining adulterant for drugs. The Crown made a motion for a serious crime prevention order, as well as noting an intention to claw back Gray's ill-gotten gains under proceeds of crime legislation. Gray was remanded in custody to allow time for the preparation of background reports and his sentence deferred until June. We told how sources claimed Gray agreed to return to Scotland, travelling under his own steam, before being met by Scottish police awaiting his arrival on Sunday the 8th of March. Gray of Paisley appeared that following day at Glasgow Sheriff Court, where he made no plea before being remanded in custody. Gray made a second appearance in the dock when he faced 4 charges alleging his involvement in drug supply and serious organised crime. Brian McConaughey KC told the court his client made it known to him soon after his arrest he intended to plead guilty. Gray's arrest came 3 months after the Dubai extradition of fellow Scots hoodlum Stephen Jimmy Jameson, who was sentenced to 6 years at the start of this month. Jameson, sidekick to Jamie Iceman Stevenson, boasted he had 2 million pills during secret talks with a 60-year-old kingpin who is currently serving 16 years for running an international drugs empire. Details of the mobster's chats emerged at the High Court in Glasgow months after Jameson's landmark extradition from Dubai to face justice. Stevenson's crew has links to the Gillespies of Rutherglen, who were last seen in Brazil in 2019. Details of the last known location emerged when Deputy White, who's 48, was nabbed in Fortaleza in Brazil in June 2020. His own EncroChat text confirmed the disappearance and his elevation to gang boss. White of Gartcosh in Lanarkshire was extradited back to Scotland and then jailed for almost 10 years after he admitted drugs and gun charges. We told how police in Brazil claim to have no information to suggest the Gillespies are dead, but Scottish police told relatives they may have come to harm.